from something called the Caribbean Program of Work.
Yes.
Way back in 2003. It was a way to garner support for the environmental work that was going on in the region to bring synergy. So you had several pillars. You had the land pillar, the climate change pillar, the biodiversity pillar. So under the land pillar, there was this partnership initiative that started off as a project. It evolved over the years, and by 2024, it became a coordinating mechanism where we would work with the focal points from the different ministries, from the different countries of the region, to look at how can we implement the convention in our Caribbean space. Tomorrow, or rather today, this evening, we will be launching PISLM as an intergovernmental organization, meaning we would have grown sufficiently and have garnered enough support and confidence from the ministers responsible for the convention for them to say, listen, you all need to strengthen your capacity, and therefore we are going to endorse your request to become an IGO. And what that means is, if folks are aware of the UN system, you have agencies like FAO,
yes,
like UNEP. We will have that same status in the region.
All right. Okay. Well, when you say sustainable land management, what will we speak of?
Okay. So the Caribbean is landlocked. Well, yeah, it's waterlocked.
Yes.
We are surrounded by the oceans, and so we have this small space. And what is happening, or has been happening over the years, is due to various climate shocks. Right now, we are suffering from drought, which is basically drying up our land cover. And when rain comes, it washes away all the topsoil.
Yes.
What we do is we work with countries to develop policies and programs that will ensure that, or not ensure, let me put it another way, minimize the amount of land that gets washed away in the ocean. So that's, in a nutshell, what we say sustainable land management looks like. It's more complicated, but that's what it looks like.
It's just giving you the surface talk, the surface of the whole initiative that will take in place. Sir, you're part in this whole initiative also. Tell me about it.
Well, my focus is on soils, so I'm looking at sustainable soils management.
Yes,
and also looking at creating the information that the countries will be able to use to make decisions concerning how they utilize their lands. And as part of that, each of the countries was responsible under the UNCCD Convention to set targets by which by 2030 that they will address the whole issue of land degradation and seek to bring it to a state of neutrality. This project is working in 8 Caribbean countries: Antigua, Barbados, Belize, St. Lucia, Grenada, Haiti, Jamaica, Barbados, and Guyana, and Guyana, to address those issues and help those countries try to meet those targets. One of the underlying challenge of all the countries is the issue of soils information. The last soil survey that was done across the region was between 1950, 57, 58, 59, and 1960, over 60 years. So there is really no up-to-date soils information on soils, fertility, soils, anything on soils. So this project is doing that in 8 of the countries. We collected national soil samples, analyzing it, and then we're going to be actually producing maps, and that will be housed in a Caribbean soils information system that will be available to the countries to use to make recommendations, decisions, etc. So, for example, you have a plot of land and you want to know what's the present fertility status. That will help you, because you need to know that to know what fertilizer you need to if you need to
at all. I guess you want to know your pH balances of your soil and all of these things comes in. How important is that for the region and into this particular initiative?
Well, extremely important, because soils, we like to talk about land.
Yeah.
But soils is
some
what we should be talking about.
And some countries will say we have good soil because something grows regular.
Exactly.
But doesn't mean it's up to the point that it should be at
all. Because one of the emerging conversations now with regards to this whole issue of soil fertility is that it's closely linked to nutrition.
So true.
So we've seen that one, there is a decrease in yields because and many farmers are trying to figure out what's causing this decrease in yield in terms of productivity.
Yeah.
And also, although they may be getting a crop, the nutrition value of that is still not what is required for human nutrition or basic nutrition.
Right.
So so like what we call poor soils lead to poor gut.
All right.
If your soils is poor, you have poor nutrition.
All right.
And we've seen that is an emerging issue across the Caribbean.
All right.
Also.
How does climate change interact into this also?
Well, I mean, the climate, this irregular pattern of rain and sun is having a serious impact on soils. Is seriously degrading a lot of the soils across the region.
Yeah. And
then, of course, when you mix that with poor agricultural practices, poor soil conservation practices, poor water conservation practices, poor fertility practices, reduced organic matter, what we call use of pen manure and composting, etc. It's having a serious impact because we've seen a lot of soils fractioning. We've seen a lot of iron, etc., being exposed in the soil. So there's a lot of moisture depletion, and that is having a negative impact on soil fertility, soil stability, and also, of course, affecting land productivity.
Now, tell me, how does this partnership initiative of sustainable land development, of course, will go about implementing some of the new ideas that you mentioned first, sir, in terms of getting the farmers to do the right thing? Not only farmers, but countries in general that pay a lot of attention to agriculture, per se. Countries that put a lot of energy into agriculture because it's what keeps their economies rolling, and they want their soil, the soil that they have, or the types of soil they have, to be optimal. How does this partnership will help to make sure that they have the right, obviously, information and so forth to go forward?
Well, we deploy something called network diplomacy.
Yeah.
So what that means essentially is individual CARICOM countries will say these are our issues. So Trevor mentioned a series of issues that may impact Grenada, for example. Some of those may impact Guyana, etc., etc. What we do is we galvanize the common issues, and we create either programs or projects. That's on one side. But how do you ensure that these programs and projects remain sustainable? On the other side, you have what's called policy, or as I just mentioned, network diplomacy. So we will then work with the UNC, that's the United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification, UNCCD. There are focal points in every Caribbean country. So we will bring them together periodically to brief them on the latest developments. They will then take that information back to state and develop national policies.
All right.
Now, to buttress that, there's also something going on globally. So from a global perspective, that brings additional resources and scientific know-how into the region. And with that, we then create a regional policy framework that we take to CARICOM.
All right.
And CARICOM will say, yes, this makes sense. So, for example, we have something called the, sticking with soil, but we have one for land, but sticking with soil.
Yeah.
We have the Caribbean Soil Support Group.
Okay.
It's made up of focal points from all 14 Caribbean countries. They bring their issues into one space. We bring international best practices into that space, and we come up with a framework. We take this framework to COTED, and COTED endorses it. And so, for example, COTED is saying, now that we know what the Caribbean Soil Support Group is about, we want them to bring their know-how into, for example, as you know, the CARICOM is doing this huge project called 25 by 25.
Yes.
So they're going to bring those best practices into 25 by 25. So every country now will have information as how to conserve soils, not only from a national perspective, but bringing international best practice. That whole process is called network diplomacy.
You mentioned a while ago that it's the last time an initiative of this was ever implemented was it 19 whatever before my time. Before my time. Why did it take so long for us to start thinking along that level again? Why did it take so long?
That's a good question. I'm not sure if we want to.
As I said, this way before time.
But I think it. But I could tell you that it came out of the agonizing need among the technical officers, the focal points and the technical officers in the region, who saw that, hey, without proper soils information, we cannot make good decisions. We cannot make good recommendations to the governments. We cannot make good recommendation on what crops to grow, how much of it to grow, etc. Because coming out of this soils information that is collected now will be, of course, land capability and land suitability maps, showing you where could is best suited for, for what kinds of crops. Right. Also, as part of this project, we also strengthen the labs in these 8 countries. Okay. So to be able to do at least the bare minimum of soils testing and analyzing for farmers, so that farmers have a place that they could now bring samples instead of having to send it outside of the region at huge cost to them. They can collect. The officers in those countries have been trained to take soil samples, and now they could bring it to the lab and have it tested and get their results.
All right. You want to chime in?
No.
Oh, yeah. I was going to ask in with this initiative being implemented and so forth. Now we're going to see where 4 different countries now going to know the better or the best practices for the land usage. We are not going to say, hey, we're not going to build a hotel there anymore because that particular land or soil type there is suitable for growing a particular crop and so forth. So I guess that initiative will also help in terms of government's decision in terms of the development of
land policies, etc. So this work we're doing feeds directly into the national land policy.
Yes.
And of course, when we add the targets, the targets to be achieved by 2030, it really strengthens the country's focus on land management issues. So that they could really begin to make the right choices. Right. I mean, we have seen areas that was once productive have been left to become degraded. And degraded is not just about the soil being exposed. It could be that you leave it abandoned for some kind of invasive species to take over. Yeah. That is creating an even more severe problem and maybe even affecting water supply. So, for example, we have seen after Ivan, many acres of land across this country was left abandoned. Yes. And invasive species bamboo has taken over, and it's now having an impact on
absorb the water and supply, etc. Would you say because of our land, the lack of initiative like what we have seen a lot of islands not being able to produce the crops and so forth that they used to? Yeah. Would you say that's been one of the causes also?
Yeah, because one of the things that we're doing under this project is looking at the historical use of land. Yeah. And it's shocking when you hear the people in the community see what this land has been used for in the 1950s. Yeah. And when you look at the progression of change of cropping types and patterns, etc., and they could tell you which did well and which didn't do well. Yeah. So we have a lot of information there, whether it's historical, anecdotal, etc., but it's collecting it and utilizing that now to say, hey, this is what we need to, this is the decisions we need to make so that we could affect the livelihood of the people who are living on those lands, but also we also preserving it for present and future generations. All right.
Tell us a wee bit more about the conference coming up, that Ministerial conference. Tell us a wee bit more about that.
Okay, so tonight we have a gala event. One of the main reasons for the tonight's event is to sign the establishment of PISLM as an intergovernmental agency. So there were 3 countries who hosted that process: Dominica, Grenada, and St. Lucia. Okay. So they'll be signing into effect the establishment of PISLM as an intergovernmental organization. And the other 11 countries will send in letters of agreement. Okay. So by the end of, let's say, November, or at least by December, before we go to the COP, PISLM will be a fully signed off intergovernmental organization. We'll also be honoring UNCCD focal points who have served their island states. I think this young man here is going to get one. He's going to get a long service award.
All right.
And some others. And we are also going to be handing out 5 PhD scholarships.
Okay.
In soils.
In soils. Yeah. So you would have 5 experts trained. And we are hoping that once they're finished, we can find work for them across the Caribbean. So that's happening tonight. Tomorrow, we will be engaged in the work. The ministers responsible for UNCCD are coming in, and they are going to be looking at what has been happening, what they want to see, and developing strategies for implementing those changes, and also planning for the next COP. There are several COPs. The more popular one is, as you know, climate change.
Yes.
But there's also a land COP in December, so we'll be planning for that. So the ministers are here to do work, but tonight we'll be celebrating the work that we have done before. And on Friday, we'll be planning for the work ahead.
All right, great.
I just want to add quickly on that too, is that the establishment agreement is also establishing PISLM in Grenada.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that is significant. It's a historical event for Grenada, because I think that this will be the first time we're having a CARICOM mandated organization based in Grenada.
All right.
And we should not take it lightly, but we should also, as Grenadians, should celebrate that and embrace it.
Yeah. So the headquarter agreement will be signed subsequently, and we'll be setting up headquarters in Grenada.
All right, great. Sometimes we hear about these particular initiatives being implemented and the different departments set up and so forth, and then we hear them fall apart. How serious is this?
The fact that we are already working in 80 countries in implementing activities that they have requested tells you that this is serious and is sustainable. Yeah. Right? Because we have soil care phase 1 now, but we also, and one of the things the ministers will be briefed on is soil care phase 2. Yeah. That will include all 14 countries. All right. Right, and those that have not had national soil surveys done will get national soil surveys done. We'll have their databases being built. We'll have work being done on lands to demonstrate some of the best practices that Calvin speak about with regards to land, sustainable land management, sustainable soils management, agroforestry, etc. All focus on achieving the targets of minimizing land degradation. And also the issue of capacity building. It's a very long time you have not heard a project that has given scholarships in a specific focus area. We know that there is a lack of soil scientists in the region, and we need to build the capacity. Those that are there now, they are getting old, they are retired. We need to bring in a new batch of them to replace and to continue the work. But also the issue of research, as part of this project, we set up a regional research facility
at UWI.
Right? 25 acres was leased by UWI to the PISLM to do that. So the countries are saying these are our priority crops. We want research to be done that we have exact figures to know how much it costs to produce a pound of dasheen, a pound of sweet potato, a pound of pepper. We are looking even at the issue of aquaculture, because everybody's complaining about the high price of crops, agricultural products.
Yes.
But who could tell me how much it costs to produce a pound of any one of them?
What are the underlying benefits to derive from this? What are the underlying benefits?
Well, to make decisions, you need information, what you call data. Yeah. And this is where we will have that long-term benefit. Yeah. And what I've seen so far is the amount of training and capacity building in very strategic areas. Yeah. We have just finished our workshop in Greenway. We have trained about 20 GIS officers, Geographical Information System officers, to be able to understand when they get the maps that will be produced, how to interpret the data, and how to build on that. So it's extremely important, and I think it augurs well for Caribbean people to understand that we are building capacity in the region. Yeah. I am proud to see that all the consultants on this project are Caribbean people.
Good. And we're going to see this trickling down to the regular man on the
Well, that's the whole point of the exercise, is to ensure that the farmers, the young entrepreneurs, the agri-processors, everybody benefits from this information.
Gentlemen, I want to thank you for being on the program this morning. I was happy to have you. I'll certainly learned a whole lot myself. And best wishes for the whole engagement that will be taking place later on this evening and tomorrow. And best wishes to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for having us.
All right, thank you so much for being here this morning. Hey, folks, that's how we take a wrap for this edition of the Mid-Morning Buzz here on, of course, Classic Radio and GBN TV. Join us again for another edition. That's where we say goodbye.